Mashburn, and today we're going to do our last muscle lab, and we're going to talk about the muscles of the leg. So there's a lot of leg muscles. It's probably the biggest group of muscles that you have to learn are the muscles of the leg, but they're not that hard. Okay, so again, this is a picture that I took from Biodigital Human, so I'm a big fan, so if you haven't looked there, make sure you go and look. It's kind of a neat website. The first muscles we're going to look at are your gluteal muscles. And so obviously they're not on this picture because we're looking at the front of the thigh. So we're going to turn it around and look at the back side. So this is the leg. Okay, so you're looking at the back side. So your gluteal muscles are your butt muscles. And so you have a gluteus maximus, medius, and minimus. Okay? This is going to be the most superficial one. This is the one you can actually, if you put your hand on your butt, that's what you're feeling, so it's going to be the superficial one. It's also the biggest. And then just below that is your medius, and then the most internal, or the deepest one, and the smallest one, is the gluteus minimus. So maximus is the biggest, the one that's on the most outside, then your gluteus medius and your gluteus minimus. So this is the gluteus maximus, and then below that you have your gluteus medius, and I have a picture, hang on, I have to go back into another, hang on, I have so many slides with pictures of muscles. Yeah, okay. So your gluteus maximus, they've actually cut it away. So here's your gluteus maximus. You can imagine it would have extended this way. And then just below that is your gluteus medius. And then here, just underneath it is the gluteus minimus. So your gluteus maximus is the most superficial. Below that, your gluteus medius. And then this one is your gluteus minimus. Now, what do they do? Look on your list. I'm going to use our guide to learn what these muscles, where they are, what they do. So how are they named? Do we know that? Gluteal region, so they're named based on their region and their relative size. So it's either the big one, the middle one, or the small one. Now, what they do with the gluteus maximus is going to be hyperextension of the hip. So hyperextension means like an arabesque, where you stick your leg way back out. So if you're standing up and you kind of kick your leg back out like a ballerina, that's hyperextension of the hip. It also everts and laterally rotates the leg. So look at these fibers, okay? When they pull, your origin's up here, when they pull, they're going to actually pull your toes out to the side. It's going to rotate your leg out to the outside. So you imagine this is my foot, it's going to rotate my feet toward the outside. The gluteus medius, it has its origin on the ilium, and it has its insertion on the trochanter of the femur. And so look at these fibers. When it contracts, it's going to abduct or elevate the leg. So if you're laying on your side and you lift your leg out to the side like you're doing leg raises, that's going to be your gluteus minimus, and then medius, and then your gluteus minimus is even deeper than the gluteus medius, and it works with the gluteus medius. It's a synergist, so it also helps you to elevate the leg laterally or abduct the leg, so to bring the leg out to the side. The next group is your quadriceps. Let's go back to this picture here. The quadriceps are the four muscles that make up the front of the thigh, so the anterior or front of the thigh. And so you have four of them. There's 1, 2, 3. Then if you take this one away, underneath that one is number 4. Okay, so that's your 4 quadriceps muscles. You have the rectus, femoris, you have the vastus, lateralis, you have the vastus medialis, and the vastus intermedius. Alright, So these are your 4 quadriceps muscles, and they all work together. They're synergists. They all work together to do basically the same thing, which is extend the knee. That's kind of what their main job is. The rectus femoris. Rectus means straight, like erect, and so this is the straight muscle on top of the thigh, okay, or right over the femur. Then your vastus lateralis is the muscle on the lateral side. So here's your rectus femoris on this side. So the lateral muscle, the vastus lateralis, here and here. Then the vastus medialis is the medial muscle. And then again, if you can take away this rectus femoris, underneath there is a rectus intermediate. So it's intermediate, it's between everything. So it's kind of intermediate to all the other directions. So here's another picture using a model. Here's your rectus femoris. This is the medial side. So this is your vastus lateralis, vastus medialis. Again, if you could take that off, you would see the vastus intermediate. And again, on the model, rectus femoris, vastus lateralis, vastus medialis. Here's your rectus femoris, vastus lateralis, vastus medialis. And if you could take this and move it away, you would see the vastus intermediate. So let's talk about what each one of these does. The rectus femoris is going to basically flex the hip or extend the knee. Okay? So leg extension. So if you bend your knee and straighten your knee, that's knee extension. The vastus lateralis, which are these muscles here and here, when they contract, they're going to evert the knee. So they're going to pull the knee out to the side. So kind of like you're a cowboy riding a horse. You're going to pull the knees out to the side. The medialis is going to invert the knee or pull the knees together. So like if you're going to hold the saddle, trying to squeeze the horse, you're going to use your vastus medialis. And the vastus intermedius, it's a synergist, and it works really well with your quads. So if you squat down, and you're going to stand up. When you stand up, you're straightening your knee, you're extending your knee. So that's that muscle. It's doing a lot of work when you stand up from a squatting position. So that's the way those 3 muscles work. Now, those are your quadriceps. Now, your hamstrings are on the back side. So flip your models around and look on the back side, and there are 3 muscles that make up the hamstring group. So here are your hamstrings. You have your biceps femoris, your semitendinosus, and your semimembranosus. Alright, so when you're looking at this this muscle, you have biceps femoris, okay? So biceps, again, that means 2 heads, okay? That's one way it's named. Femoris means it's over the femur. Now this is why it's so important. If you're looking at the arm of the leg and you see a muscle and you go, oh, that's the biceps, that's wrong. I have to know, do you know it's the biceps brachii or the biceps femoris? Because that's 2 separate muscles. So don't just label things as biceps. If it's in the arm, it's biceps brachii. If it's in the leg, it's biceps femoris. Now, when you're looking at these models, you're going to see a muscle here, and then there's a muscle here. There's actually a little muscle that's kind of peeking out underneath there. The lateral muscle is the biceps femoris. So this one is the biceps femoris. The semitendinosus and semimembranosus are these medial muscles, and they're paired. The semitendinosus is the superficial muscle, and then below that, the deep muscle is the semimembranosus. And this is a little better view of this one. Here's the biceps femoris here. This is the semitendinosus, and then peeking out from underneath is the semimembranosus. And the way I tell my students, if the tendon's long and skinny, so the tendinosus is the long, skinny muscle, and a membrane is kind of big and fat and wide. So the membranosus is the flat one underneath, it's kind of wide, so the tendinosus sits on top of it. So what do they do? The biceps femoris flexes the knee. So when it contracts, it's going to pull your calf muscle, your calf up, and extend or flex the knee. Also, when it contracts, it will pull your foot out and laterally rotate your leg. Your semimembranosus and tendinosus also work to flex the knee. So they're going to bring your the bottom of your foot up to your rear end, so to flex the knee. And they're going to medially rotate, because if you contract this, it's going to pull your foot this way. So it's going to medially rotate your leg. So that's how those two work. And these are synergists. They all work together to flex the knee. So if you're exercising your hamstrings, you might put a weight on your foot and then raise your foot towards your butt, and you would be exercising your hamstrings. So if they flex your knee and your quadriceps extend your knee, then that makes those antagonists. Alright, we're on the last sets of muscles. We're going to do some other thigh muscles, and then we're going to do the muscles at the bottom of the leg. So other thigh muscles. You have your tensor fascia latae. Let me write that down for you. Tensor fascia latae. It sounds like something you would get at Starbucks. Alright, the tensor fascia latae is on the lateral side of your leg. And so it's this muscle here. It comes right here. And it goes down into this long tendon. And this is the iliotibial band. You may have heard someone has iliotibial band syndrome. It's this long band of tendon. Sometimes when your tensor fascia latae gets tight, it kind of pulls on this tendon and kind of pulls your knee out to the side. And so if you're a runner especially, you won't be running even anymore. Your legs will be a little bit bow-legged, and it can cause pain. So they'll have you stretch out that iliotibial band to kind of release that tension on the knee and help relieve some of that pain. Anyway, so the tensor fascia latae, I've got a model here that's going to show you, is this muscle right here. And so the fibers run in this direction. So the origin's up here, the insertion's down here. So when they shorten, it raises your leg. And the best way to explain this is think about getting down on your hands and knees, and especially you ladies, if you do the doggy lift and kind of lift your leg out to the side and up, that doggy lift, that's the tensor fascia latae. Or think about a dog going to the bathroom, that's that muscle working. So it kind of lifts your leg at a 45-degree angle. And it's an antagonist to the gluteus medius. So remember the gluteus, it's synergist to the gluteus medius. They both work to take your leg or abduct your leg away. The next muscle is the sartorius. And the sartorius is this long, skinny muscle here. Let me go back to another picture. It looks like a muscle that shouldn't even be there. It's kind of this random muscle right here and here. This long, skinny muscle. If we look at both legs together, it's this one and this one. The origin is up here, and the insertion is down here on the inside of the knee. And so when this muscle contracts, it brings your knees out. So it allows you to sit yoga style. So it kind of brings your knees out. So if you want to sit crisscross applesauce, it's going to contract, bring your knees out, and allow you to sit Indian style, or however you want to call sitting cross-legged. The origin of the sartorius is up in the iliac spine of the ilium. The insertion is the medial tibia, so down here, so below the level of the femur. There's got to be a joint there. It's going to pull the knees that way so you can sit crisscross applesauce. The next muscles are your adductors and your gracilis. If you find your sartorius, the muscle that is the most medial, there's a straight muscle, the most medial muscle, right, your innermost thigh muscle, that's your gracilis. Okay, so let me see if I can see it on this picture. So this muscle here, that's your gracilis. Alright, use your sartorius and your gracilis and make a Y. These muscles here, there are several adductors. But you don't have to learn each one of them. You're going to use a group name. So these group of muscles that can be found between the gracilis and the sartorius are your adductors. So here's your gracilis, here's your sartorius, so these would be your adductors. Again, I'll also name this group of muscles. Your adductors, as their name tells you, is they adduct, so it's a action name. And they are going to allow you to adduct or pull your thighs together. Think about a Suzanne Summers Thigh Master where she squeezes her thighs together, or if you're going to grip the saddle of a horse, that's what you're using. You're squeezing your thighs together using your adductors. Your adductors and your gracilis work together, so they're synergists. And because they bring your legs together, and your tensor fasciolatae abducts, or takes your legs away, that makes them antagonists. So again, as you're learning these muscles, you want to think about opposite directions. So if you have an adductor, there must be an abductor. If there's a flexor, there must be an extensor. So make sure you're pairing these up and doing that. And before I move on, let me just kind of say one more thing. In class, what we do is for each muscle, everybody stands up and we look like fools, but we're actually doing all these muscles. So as we're going along, when you get a chance, take these muscles and move them so that you can understand the movement of the muscle and a better location of where the muscle is. In your shell, I've actually given you a link. It's in your bone unit that shows you the different joint movements. That will also help you to learn how to use your muscles. You'll kind of go back and see those joint movements, and you can associate that with your muscles and how they move. Get your kid, get your spouse, get your significant other, your best friend, and just kind of practice movement of these muscles, and that will help you understand what they do. And like I said, we do this in class, and so I recommend you do it at home too. Most of my students tell me they go home, they get in the mirror, and they flex and extend, and they move and they rotate, and they think about what muscle is involved in each one of those movements, and that helps them remember the muscle and what it does. Okay. Last set of muscles is the lower leg, and there are 4 muscles of the lower leg. You have the gastrocnemius, which is your calf muscle, and it looks like 2 muscles, but it's this one and this one. It's one big muscle. That's your gastrocnemius, and it's named because gastro means belly or stomach, and I guess someone thought that looked like a leg belly, so gastrocnemius means leg belly. So that's where it gets its name. The origin is up here on the femur, so here's the origin. The insertion is on the calcaneus. Remember, that's that big heel bone. So when you contract that muscle, it raises your heel, so it puts you up on your tiptoes. Okay, so if you point your toes down, raise your heel, that's plantar flexion. So that's what that does. And this tendon here, this is the calcaneal or Achilles tendon. Your other muscle is your tibialis anterior. So based on that name, anterior is front, tibialis is tibia. So this must be the muscle on front, or in front of the tibia, which it is. So this is your tibialis anterior. And what it does, when it contracts, it pulls your toes up, or dorsiflexion. So that causes your toes to come back towards your knees. It brings your toes up, or dorsiflexion. So if this brings your toes up, and this brings your toes down, then the gastrocnemius, or tibialis anterior, are antagonists. Alright, the next one is called the peroneus longus. I don't like that because I don't know what that means. But if I use the other name, which is fibularis longus, that tells me a whole lot more. That's the one I use. If you want to use peroneus longus, I know enough to count it right on your exam. But for me, it's a whole lot easier to remember fibularis longus, because longus is a really long muscle somewhere near the fibula. Okay? Well, look on the outside. Remember, your fibula is the lateral bone. So find your lateral malleolus, your outside ankle bone, and find the long muscle that goes to it. So your fibularis longus is the long muscle that goes right next to the fibula down to your lateral malleolus. That's a much more easier way to remember it. What the fibularis longus does, when it contracts, it everts your foot. So it will make your foot kind of like you walk on the inside of your feet. It'll kind of rotate your foot this way so that you're out. So this is my big toe. I'm walking on my big toe. My pinky toe is up in the air, so eversion of the foot. And then last but not least, you have the soleus. And the soleus on the models, if you take off the gastrocnemius, it's right underneath the gastrocnemius. On the pictures, it's this thin, flat muscle, this one right here. So it's underneath the gastrocnemius and kind of behind the fibularis longus. So this long, skinny muscle here is the soleus. And the soleus gets its name because it's a long, flat muscle, and it looks like a fish. And there's a fish called a sole, and so it looks like the sole fish. So that's how it gets its name. And it inverts the foot. So you take this is your big toe, you're going to invert your feet, and you're going to walk on the outside of your feet. So that would make the soleus and the fibularis longus antagonists. It also helps with the gastrocnemius. It kind of acts to make the gastrocnemius stronger. So it, when you're walking, going upstairs and things like that, and when your calves get kind of sore, a lot of times that's your soleus muscle that you're having some pain in. All right, and the last thing you have flexor and extensor digitorum. You'll notice there's no flexor and extensor tarsi, or like there was carpi, because that's what your gastrocnemius and your tibialis anterior are doing. They're basically flexing your ankle. So you don't have that set of muscles like you did in the hand. But you do have your flexor and extensor digitorum. Remember your digits, your toes are still digits. So if you're going to flex your toes can bend your toes down. Those muscles are going to be underneath the sole of your foot. And if you're going to flex your toes or extend your toes, raise your toes back up, those muscles are going to be up here. So again, you don't have to locate each muscle on the test. I'll say name the muscles that extend the toes, or name the muscles that flex the toes. And you would say flexor or extensor digitorum. All right. Let's just kind of review using an actual model. Here's a gastrocnemius. Okay. Here is the fibularis longus, because you're on the outside, the lateral side. Here's the tibialis anterior. And here's that soleus right here underneath the gastrocnemius, and between the gastrocnemius and fibularis longus, you have your soleus. Alright, so I always put this in at the end of my lectures. I want you to practice in the mirror with your friends and family. Okay, the best way to learn these muscles is to just move and practice, and get your swimsuit on, whatever, get in front of the mirror and use these muscles. You want to be able to identify these muscles on models and diagrams for my test, but in the real world, people have something called skin and fat over them, and you still have to be able to recognize where these muscles are on a real person, so that one day when the physician says, hey, would you give so-and-so a shot in the deltoid, you know where that is, and you can imagine what the deltoid looks like underneath the skin. In the real world, everybody looks a whole lot different. You're going to see people, I wish everybody looked like this, because then you could find each muscle. You could see the deltoid, you could see the biceps, you can see the sartorius, you can see the vastus medialis, lateralis, rectus femoris. However, a lot of us look like this, and you can see those muscles. They're covered in fat. So you've got to have a good idea of where those muscles are and what they look like, so that when you're told to give a shot in the vastus lateralis or medialis or deltoid or biceps, you know where that is on the human body. So again, take some time in front of the mirror and try to identify those muscles on you. If you're buff and you work out a lot, it's going to be a whole lot easier than it would be on somebody like me. But again, that's why you need to practice on different people. So got kids, your spouse, your significant other, just kind of practice finding those muscles so that you have an idea where they are, because it's a different world. You go in there with a patient, someone from the ages of 6 to 95. Someone with a BMI of 15 or 45, you still got to know where the muscles are. You still got to know where to give the injections, so you got to practice. So you'll see all kinds in the real world, so go ahead and start thinking that way. We don't all look like the models. All right, it's been fun. That's the end of your muscle lab. Take time to watch the YouTube videos. That will help you as well. And I will see you again when we start the nervous system.